Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining Midland Trust Company's webinar regarding cryptocurrency in an IRA. My name is Sypniewski. I'm one of the directors here at Midland Trust. For those of you who aren't familiar, Midland Trust is an alternative investment custodian. We specialize in self-directed IRA accounts. Many of the attendees today might be clients of ours, so you're familiar with what we do. But you can see my information there as a potential resource should you have questions regarding Midland Trust and our services. Today, we're going to be joined by John Denza of ErisX. He is the Chief Commercial Officer at ErisX, and he is our subject matter expert joining us to discuss cryptocurrency in an IRA. We've had great attendance for today. We're really excited to get into our subject. But before we get started, a couple of items to note, a couple of housekeeping items for the audience. If you'll notice here in the webinar, there to the right side, there's a panel. Along the top there, try to key in on questions for those of you that have want to pose any questions for the panel members today. You'll want to click on that questions tab. We did have a great amount of submitted questions prior to the event, so we're going to do our best to get through all of those first before getting to the live questions. And if we don't get them to this morning here live, we will reach out to you after the presentation and get all these questions answered that we'll be harvesting throughout the presentation. If you don't have a video or audio, we encourage you to try refreshing your screen. And if you do continue to have problems, no worries. You will receive the webinar recording in your inbox after it wraps up here this morning. A couple of disclaimers for the audience. Both Midland Trust and ErisX do not provide investment advice or endorse any investment products, nor are we affiliated. All the information and material provided to you today are for educational purposes only. We do encourage you to consult with your attorney, your tax advisor, and or your CPA before entering into any sort of alternative investments. So now that that has all been taken care of, I will turn it over to JD. JD, thanks for joining us. Take it away, man.
Thank you for having me today, Adam. I appreciate it, and ErisX appreciates the opportunity to join your webinar and to be hosted today. So just a little bit of background on myself. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for ErisX. My previous experience has been in the exchange space. I've worked in the exchange space for over 20 years, working at designated places such as Island ECN, Instead, NASDAQ, and also with BATS CBOE. Always in a sales account management role. I think throughout my career, I've launched about 6 different exchanges, ErisX being the most recent one. And with that, I would say about 5-6 years ago, I had the opportunity to kind of find Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and fell down the rabbit hole. I kind of saw the parallels between traditional capital markets and crypto, and had the opportunity to join ErisX, and have been with them for over 2.5 years now. So I figured best to dig right in. For the audience, I like to use analogies. I think it's best when using analogies to kind of understand a topic. So first topic I'd love to dig into for the space is, people try to understand what is the difference between gold versus Bitcoin. And in its simplest terms, it's a store of value, Bitcoin. So think about it this way. A lot of your users probably would go to, let's say, a Starbucks. And if they went to a Starbucks and they had a gold coin and they went to the counter and said, I'd like to buy that latte with this gold coin. The barista behind the counter would be like, well, I can't break that. I can't use that. That's not going to work for me. Well, think about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is similar to, a lot of your users have what's called like a barcode on their phone, the app. They flash that barcode, it deducts from their account automatically. Well, it's similar to with Bitcoin. You can actually use Bitcoin to make purchases. And what's unique about Bitcoin is the fact that it goes out 8 decimal places. So if you wanted to buy that latte for $4.24, you could literally flash your barcode, which is directly linked to your wallet, and deduct those funds from your account. So you'd be able to buy that latte. So let's take it a step further. So what is blockchain? Blockchain in its simplest terms, I like to use is, think of a giant Excel spreadsheet where everybody on the Excel spreadsheet has access, and everything that's being done is dynamic. They see the updates across the board, across the audience, and everything that actually, the history of it is immutable. You cannot change anything that happens. So each of those blocks that are added to the blockchain are immutable, and they're actually creating a history that everyone can see, not one person at a time. So to take that another step further, what is cryptocurrency? We've already covered the topic of Bitcoin, which is a store of value. The other part of cryptocurrencies, the other kind of family of cryptocurrencies, is smart contracts. And the best example of a smart contract would be Ethereum, which most people have heard of before. I like to use this as an example. Think about, Ethereum is a smart contract. So everybody's gone to a vending machine before, and they look at the vending machine, they want to buy the Kit Kat that's in the vending machine. It's $1.25. So let's say you go to the machine, you put 75 cents in, you hit A3, the Kit Kat doesn't fall down. You don't receive the candy bar. Well, now you put in an extra quarter, and then next thing you know, you try to type in A3, it doesn't come down, it doesn't fall down. Well, I said it was $1.25, and you put that final quarter in, you hit A3, boom, the Kit Kat falls down. Well, think of it as like an if-then. If I do this, then this will happen. That's it. In its simplest terms, that's what a smart contract is. It's actually giving a set of instructions, and if you follow those instructions to the T, then you'll actually have a result. So let's dig ahead a little bit further here. I know that some of your audience have probably heard, they try to understand what the concept of a miner is. And you know, they hear about Bitcoin, how there's miners on the network and so forth. The miner actually has two functions. The function one is to actually approve transactions. So in the earlier example, when I said that that person had gone to Starbucks to buy that latte, moving that transaction from their wallet to the payment at Starbucks requires a miner to approve that transaction. So that's one of their responsibilities. Also, what's unique about Bitcoin is it's a store of value, and they're only going to be a certain set supply of coins ever made available, 21 million to be exact. So the role of them is to actually mine those coins, and there are blocks that are actually approved roughly every 10 minutes. We had a halving event, I think it was a few months back. So what happens is every certain amount of years, the amount of Bitcoin that can be mined is cut in half. The last one was set at 12. Now it's roughly at 6. So every time these miners solve a very complex equation, they're actually approved, and they receive 6 Bitcoin as a result. And in the end, it's actually like a bell curve. You'll get less and less as the years progress until you reach 21 million, and then that caps it. So there's a limited supply of Bitcoin. So with that being said, I think it's best to, let's dig into a little history of ErisX. I'm going to flip over to some slides that I've created here in just a second. Perfect. Adam, you can see my screen, I assume?
Yeah, you're doing great, JD. Keep it up, man. This is really good stuff. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dig into ErisX. So a little history on the firm. So back in, I'd say about 10 years ago, we had created an interest rate swap futures product. And when we did that, the investors went out and they petitioned the CFTC for what's called a DCM, which allowed us to operate a futures exchange. At that time, it was a bit set up rather inefficient, because whenever you have a futures contract, you have to go to a DCO to clear that futures contract. At the time, that DCO was CME. So what happened was they end up licensing the IP to the CME, and now they're left holding this futures exchange medallion. And the early investors included names like Dear W, CTC, which are some large proprietary trading shops. And they recognized years ago that for the industry to flourish, you need to have regulation, transparency, and compliance. For those pieces to be in place, that's how you're going to attract institutional liquidity into this new burgeoning asset class. So what they did was they actually created a cap table, which will be on a future slide, of several member firms that you've actually heard of before. They created that cap table, and then they basically started to build out the platform. And what we did was, I would say in April 2019, we actually launched our spot exchange. And then a couple months later, we got approved for our DCO, which allows us to clear futures trades. In, I would say, roughly December 2019, we actually launched our own proprietary trading technology. We do not outsource the technology. It's our own code base. It's our technology. And we also launched at that time our first physically settled futures contract. So we launched those. And then also during that period of time, we actually went out, and it's a pretty big undertaking, went out to the 50 states in the US, which I'll touch on in a future slide, and got approved for money transmitter licenses in each of those states, which allows us to handle customer transactions. So then over that period, we also got, or received, I should say, which is extremely difficult, was what's called the New York Bit License. It allows us to work with New York customers, and it's actually a very difficult license to obtain from a money transmitter standpoint. I think since we've been approved over the past year, maybe only one other member firm has actually been approved for this license. So that takes us to today. I would say that over the last 6 months or so, we've actually been pushing hard with drafting our margin application with the CFTC. And in December of 2020, we actually filed it with the goal that we'll actually have margin on futures eventually for cryptocurrencies. So that actually puts us in a unique position. So you think about it, if you're going to look to some of our peers, let's say like a Coinbase or Gemini, they're strictly trading spot. If you look at a Backed or let's say CME, CME has cash settled futures and Backed has physically settled futures. ErisX is actually going to marry both worlds. Right now we actually have physical and cash settled futures, and also our spot trading on our market too. So with that being said, I'm going to jump ahead to the next slide, like I mentioned earlier about our investors. Oh, first I should actually touch on the coins. So the coins that we actually cover right now and we support is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and USDC. We do have future plans in Q3 and Q4 to expand the list of coins that we have on our platform. So more to come with that. So jump to that. This is the slide I was going to reference before. So this is an example of all, or I should say an illustrative view of all of our investors in ErisX. Their names that people have most likely heard before. DRW is a very large participant, Virtue being a publicly traded prop trading firm. Bitmain is one of the largest miners for cryptocurrencies. Consensus is also involved with us. Their founder was one of the founders is Joe Lubin, who actually sits on our board and is one of the creators of Ethereum. Also, we've got involved on here Digital Currency Group, DCG, which DCG I would say is actually, people have heard of GBTC. They're the ones that actually created that tracking stock for Bitcoin. Other names that you could see here that are household names are CBOE, CME, and NASDAQ. But the piece that really drew me into ErisX that I was most excited about was seeing that on the cap table, Ameritrade, TradeStation, and Fidelity also invested into ErisX. And we actually have made press releases that Fidelity and TradeStation are very active on the platform, trading cryptocurrencies right now. So jump ahead here. I'm going to stop here for a second. So I just wanted to share with the audience what if once you become a member of ErisX, what are the tools that you'll use to be able to trade on the platform? Here's an example of our exchange member portal, which you'll be granted with access immediately once you're approved on ErisX. Within that portal, you'll be able to see what your positions are in USD, the different coins that we have. If you wanted to download reports on your trading activity, you'd be able to see it here. And to lock in on one important piece here is our quick trade ticket. The quick trade ticket gives the user the ability that, let's say they say in this example, I have $1,000, I want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible with that $1,000. You'd hit that buy button that's listed on the screen there. It would take you to another screen. It would tell you the amount of Bitcoin you would purchase at that moment. And then if you wanted to, at that point, you would hit it again. You'd press the button again, and then you would actually receive the Bitcoin in your account. Let's jump ahead to the next slide. We've actually taken this exchange member portal that I've discussed here, and we've actually made it available on mobile. So you can actually pull up your phone and you'll be able to see your positions and activity on your phone as well. And then for your users that are looking for something that's a little bit more sophisticated from a trading standpoint, we actually have what's called a trading user interface. So for example, I'm just going to back up a slide here. Up at the top screen where it says trade, if you were to hit that button, it would take you to this screen. So this screen actually is self-explanatory. We have charting there. We have history and time and sales. You can actually see a live feed of the book. And then off to the left here, which is grayed out, you'd be able to submit your orders into ErisX. And you could actually, if you wanted to click on a position here on the bid, it would auto-populate your position within the module. Just to take it a step further, just like I mentioned about the exchange portal being available on your mobile device, same here with the trading interface. You'd actually be able to access all of your tools here right off of your phone. And as you can see from the tabs below, you'd be able to do your trading. You have your order book down here. If you could see where my mouse is there, you can see your the trade history, charts, orders, and then if you had a watch list, you could put that in there as well. And I think, you know, what we pride ourselves on at ErisX, and I think which is a big differentiator, is how seriously we take regulation. So we went out, unlike some of our peers, and we obtained that DCO and the DCM from the CFTC, which means that we are regulated on a federal level. And then we also went out to the states and we obtained all those money transmitter licenses that I discussed earlier, including the New York BIT license. This is just an example of what I was mentioning before about the federal oversight and the state oversight from the CFTC, which is also where we actually filed our exchange rule set. So for our spot and futures, we actually filed our exchange rule set with the CFTC. And then also just touching on the state money transmitter licenses again. Here's just an illustrative view of all the states that we cover. Virginia is pending right now, but we do have the application in and we should be receiving a notification any day now. As you can see from the jurisdictional progress, we're hopeful that in Q2 we'll be receiving a response from them. And then also just recently we were approved in Nevada as well. And then some other final links in the presentation. These are places that you could reference for additional information on ErisX. We have ErisX.com, ErisX Insights, and ErisX Digital. So I want to jump ahead here. I'll leave that up on the screen. And I know that your user base will actually have some questions. So give me a second here. I'm going to dig into the pricing next.
Thanks, JD. I think
Oh,
the audience has a lot of great questions coming through. So we'll continue to address them as they come through, and along with the ones that were submitted prior to the event.
Perfect. I look forward to answering those once I finish up with the overview. So the fee for trading on ErisX is 50 basis points, which is extremely competitive if you look at it towards our competitors. As of right now, we do not charge a fee for custody. So the custody portion is actually included in the transaction fee. One other thing that I wanted to highlight is that we really pride ourselves on turnaround on approving the accounts. So if one of your users submits a full application to ErisX, the longest I should say that the turnaround time would ever be is 3 business days. If everything aligns correctly and they hand in all the correct documents, it could be a same day response from ErisX, and then you're off to the races and you have access to your account. So there's that. And then also next to, I know that if you wanted to reference what I was mentioning before, if you wanted to check your balances or deposits and so forth, you would go back to that exchange member portal where there was that quick trade ticket, just as a informational purposes. Just wanted to bring that up again. Let's see here. I know that custody and security was one of the concerns of your audience. I'm just going to give a brief overview. We do work with a top tier custody provider in the space, probably one of the largest. I can't give the specific name, but it's one of the first ones to have launched a custody offering. We do have an insurance policy in place that protects against loss of coin and any kind of issues with nefarious activities. We do have a proprietary combination of hot and cold storage. When we want to do with regards to the keys, I should say, that's the next topic. The way that we've set it up with the IRA participants is what I call a closed loop system, so that if you have a participant from Midland and they want to access their crypto account, they'll actually deposit funds into ErisX. They would trade on ErisX. We would hold it in our custody. You would not be able to withdraw fiat or withdraw a coin from the account. And then if you wanted to liquidate that position, you would liquidate it, and then the funds would flow back to Midland. So it's considered a closed loop system. Because it's a closed loop system, we actually hold on to the keys because we're not allowing people to withdraw the coin from the platform. Some other highlights to talk about security and compliance. We actually just completed our SOC 2 testing, which is a very rigorous test that organizations have to go through. It consists of say 5 areas, which include security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. to handle this audit that we did for SOC 2, we required a tremendous amount of effort. I would say it took about 6 months to finally get our approval. And then I think that another key point that if people ever have concerns about security is, I would always say to reference our investor list. Those are huge brand names that people have heard of before, NASDAQ, CME, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Virtue. They wouldn't invest in a company unless they felt comfortable with their investment and felt that it was safe. We touched on before the different currencies that we cover. So it's Bitcoin, ETH, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and USDC. We do have plans in the future for listing new coins. I think that that's big on our product roadmap for Q3, Q4. I can't release to the audience just yet what those coins will be, but it's safe to say that for those that understand ERC20, which is what the Ethereum platform is built on, we're actually connected to that technology, so it's relatively easy for us to add ERC20 tokens to the platform. But when we do look to add new coins, it's actually a very difficult, or stringent, I should say, process, so that we look at different things like regulatory and legal. Is there a legitimate purpose for this coin to be listed on ErisX? Another one would be, is it considered a security? We all have read about what's happening with XRP right now and how it's under review by the SEC because they feel like it's centralized in nature. So we need to check if it's a security. Also, I mentioned if it's about the blockchain implementation about ERC20 tokens. Also, some other things that we look at are concentration of control. Does one entity control most of the flow of the coin and the creation of the coin, or is it spread out across the network? How will that affect members? And then also the final one is short and long-term demand. We don't want to list a coin that's hot today and then is going to fade within a couple weeks. We want something that has longevity and has a good, strong reputational impact to the exchange. And then when we do go through all these steps and we decide that we're going to list a coin, it actually goes through a review by our executive committee, and then it actually goes to our risk committee, which actually consists of people outside of ErisX. And then I would say, I always like to touch on this part is, what differentiates ErisX from our competitors? And some of those things that I would say is customer service and market operations. Our market ops team is available 24/7. If you actually called them, you're going to get somebody on the phone that's going to answer your questions. And then our client service team that's actually approving the accounts and reviewing the accounts, they're available Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. So we usually, I would say there's always somebody there 24/7. And if there's a client, like an onboarding question, the team is there 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. The other thing the other point that I'd like to highlight is the pricing. It's transparent. It's 50 basis points. We don't have convoluted fee schedules and additional expenses. It's straightforward, 50 basis points, clear and transparent. Lastly, regulation. I should say one other topic after regulation, but regulation, we're regulated on the state and federal level. We have the DCM, we have a DCO, and we have all those money transmitter licenses, including the New York BIT license. And then the last point I want to touch on is we bring a unique view to the space because, as I mentioned earlier, I have 20 years of capital markets experience, and I'm applying that experience to the crypto industry. I would say our COO has actually launched, I think it's been, he's got me beat. He has, I think he's launched 10 different exchanges over time, maybe a dozen. My CTO actually built the matching engine technology for the CME. And then lastly, our CEO comes from large banks such as Citi and Deutsche Bank, where he's held positions in different prime brokerage capacities. And he even also held a position with one of the technology arms for Citadel as well. So we take this wealth of experience and we're trying to apply it to the cryptocurrency industry and with our exchange. And then the last topic I like to always talk about is how do I view mass adoption? Where do I see crypto going from this point? And there's certain things that I think really speak volumes to the space. And one of them is I love to compare Bitcoin to Tesla. If you look at Tesla in March of 2020, it was trading at $85. It actually ran up, and then it had a 5-for-1 split. And if you factor in that 5-for-1 split, it went up to $800, but it was technically $4,000, let's say. That growth was 47x from where it was. Bitcoin over the same period to March 2020 actually grew 9.5x as it reached 63,000. So what I'm trying to highlight is the stability of the asset. You're seeing this massive swing in one of the equities, in an equity such as Tesla, but when you compare it to Bitcoin, it's actually had a much more stable growth over that period of time. And then also, I also like to look at what the different lenders are offering. So two of the big lenders in the space are BlockFi and Celsius. And over that period, over the last 3-4 months, what would happen is institutions would go to, let's say, a BlockFi, and they would say, you know, they would want to borrow the coin because they knew that the borrow rate on the coin was going to be lower than the potential run in the price of Bitcoin, so that would offset the two. So they give people the ability to park their coin there and actually collect an interest rate. That interest rate has actually dropped over a period of time where you could live 2 BTC there and collect 6%, to now it's half a BTC, I believe, and you're collecting 5%. So the point I'm trying to highlight is the stability of the asset class. And you're not having, outside of this last week, you're normally not having these crazy gyrations within the space. Also, we've seen the news recently about Fidelity submitting an ETF, Goldman Sachs creating a trade desk, Morgan Stanley having products now that allow their private network, private high net worth clients having access to crypto. It's just expanding the space. We also see BNY, which is the world's largest custodian with 41 trillion in assets under management, talking about being able to accept custody of coin by the end of the year. But I think that the one thing I think was there's a tremendous pivot point for the industry was the news about PayPal. PayPal has 350 million users on their network. Prior to them accepting crypto, there were only 100 million wallets ever created to hold coin. So overnight, we just opened up the universe by 3.5x to the amount of people that have access to crypto. So, and then lastly, there's some of these other, you think about it, if you have a portfolio, you're always going to want to diversify in your portfolio. And if you put 2 or 3%, maybe you're putting it towards precious metals, but instead, let's say you also added cryptocurrencies to that. And if we looked at it from a larger view where everybody started to include cryptocurrencies within their portfolio, Citi and Guggenheim have also come out with price targets where we could easily see, because of the limited supply of Bitcoin, the price easily rise to 300 and 400,000 per coin. So I know I covered a lot of ground there, Adam. So I will take a pause at that point.
Yeah, no, that was great stuff, JD. I think the audience appreciates your analogies and the history of ErisX. Also, you know, kind of what we can look at today that comforts us about the market, as opposed to say 2 or 3 years ago when things really started, you know, when we saw that kind of hockey stick of price, you know, prices going up at the end of the year, and you know, there was some hesitancy to approach the market. I think conditions are different now. You mentioned those institutional players that I think really lend credibility to the space, and I think that's why we see the interest that we do today. And based on the audience today, I think that holds true, that this is something that is not going away anytime in general, nor anytime soon. So I'm excited to kind of get to some of the questions that I know that we received prior to the event. A lot you kind of, you know, plowed in your presentation, JD, but I think there are some other questions we want to answer to, specifically both, you know, on behalf of Midland, I'll take care of, and JD will answer those questions more in the crypto space. So I think our moderator Lauren is gonna kick that process off for us.
Yeah, hi everyone. Okay, JD, I have a few questions that I think you are best to answer. So
Sure.
which altcoins do you expect to add to the ErisX platform this year?
I would say that as I touched on before, I don't have specific names of coins that will be added. I just want the audience to recognize the fact that it is part of our product pipeline. And that's why I wanted to answer the question, because we are building an internal list based on customer demand. And I would say that within the next couple months, you're going to see new coins being added to the platform. One of the things also to keep in mind is to go back to the listing policy. They have, with New York and New York Bit license, they only have an approved list of coins that we're allowed to list to maintain our license. And I think it's called the green list that we actually need to follow. And then if we wanted to deviate, we actually have to petition New York to allow for that.
Okay, great. What are the cryptocurrencies? Where are the cryptocurrencies purchased from? And does ErisX hold them, or are they a pass-through?
Great question. So we're unique in the sense that there's what's called over-the-counter desks, which are these trading groups that hold inventory of their own, and then people trade against them. We're an exchange. The way I describe an exchange is we're intermediated between every buyer and a seller. So we're the seller to the buyer to the seller. We're always sitting in the middle. So what we're doing is we're bringing in participants, including market makers, who are competing for your order flow. So when you look at that order book, there's multiple people that are listing and giving their interpretation of what they think the market should be, and they're trying to earn Midland Trust's order flow.
Okay. Is there a tool to track crypto live or to auto sell or buy?
It's not necessarily that you can actually track the orders within the trading UI. I mentioned the watch list before. What was the other part of the question? Can you run it through me, Lauren, one more time?
Yeah. Is there a tool to track crypto live to sell auto or buy, or to auto sell or buy?
Yeah, you can actually, there's a functionality within the module, which in the larger trading UI, one, you could actually put limit orders in there. So if you wanted to actually let the order work. And then there's also what's called a pegging feature. The pegging functionality, and we're looking to expand the algo suite, but in its simplest terms, if you want to do an order that offsets to the mid, let's say by a couple dollars, and it will track the price and move with the price of the mid, you have that functionality, and there's no charge to use that. It's just a standard order type that's made available.
Great. How does an IRA wallet differ from a traditional wallet?
Sure. So an IRA wallet will be different because of the closed loop system. So ErisX is going to control the wallet, and the funds will not be able to be withdrawn or moved to an external wallet. If you decided that you wanted to supplant your account with a direct membership with ErisX, you can actually have an IRA account through Midland, and you can also go to ErisX to have an account to trading or general trading account with ErisX. That general trading account will have more flexibility, so that if you purchased coin in ErisX and you decided that you wanted to move it offline, we'll give you access to the keys, and you can actually withdraw those funds.
Okay. And we had a few questions regarding staking. Can crypto assets in an IRA account be staked? And does it make sense to do short-term investments, or is staking for future a smart thing to do?
Staking is definitely, there's a risk involved to it. So I can't give trading advice, but the way that staking works is that if you stake a certain coin, you'll actually receive kind of like a dividend of that coin. Kind of like it happens with the new version of ETH, where if you stake your ETH at certain places, they'll actually give you the ETH for staking it. There are other coins that incentivize you that if you stake ETH, they might give you pieces of that coin to be able to stake it. Right now, we do not have staking on ErisX, but that is also on our product roadmap for the second half of the year. So I wanted to answer that question. So we're looking to do things where we could allow you to stake your coin with us, and you'll actually earn some sort of an interest. And then also we're looking to include things like where, let's say, if one of your participants wanted to buy USDC, they can actually use that and rest of you or keep it within our custody and earn an interest rate on it. These are items that are on our project plan for the product roadmap. They're not available today, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to complete those within Q3, Q4 of this year.
Perfect. What is the best platform for U.S. residents to short sell crypto?
Well, I'm going to say the best platform to trade on is going to be ErisX. That's a layup. But yes, you're able to short on the platform for ErisX. If you have dollars in the account, you could short that position there. Is there another one, Lauren?
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which order is best to read these in. They're just kind of all over the place. How is buying and selling in cryptocurrency any different than trading in stocks?
I would say there's a tremendous amount of parallels between the two of them. That's what drew me into the cryptocurrency space. It's very similar. You almost could look at it more similar to FX, but you're basically looking on a screen and you're seeing a price that you want to purchase it and a price that it's being made available. And just like the trading UI that I showed to you before, people that trade equities, they see a price, they want to acquire that stock at that price. Same with Bitcoin. You see a price, you acquire at that price or sell at that price.
Okay. Do I have to use an exchange to ramp from fiat to crypto?
Yeah, that's being able to move US dollars in. There are certain accounts that kind of goes back to the point of what I was talking about with the money transmitter licenses. In order to accept US dollars in the 50 states that we're approved in, we actually need to be approved by that state, and that allows us to on-ramp fiat into your account. Some exchanges that don't have those money transmitter licenses will only accept coins. So that kind of goes back to where we were talking about USDC. So if you had a stable coin, you could move that stable coin instead of fiat and trade with the stable coin and then take coin off of the platform. But ErisX does accept fiat into the platform.
Okay. And then speaking of types of coins, we had a lot of questions about altcoins and whether or not you can exchange those in an IRA.
Mm-hmm. So that goes back to what I was mentioning before. The goal is to add those altcoins in Q3, Q4, and our product roadmap is going to be addressing that. And it's based on customer demand, and I hope to have some more information within the next couple months.
What cryptocurrencies are reasonably the safest?
I can't give investment advice, but I would always, I like to say that, it's a reference guide that I like to use is CoinMarketCap. They list all of the different coins and the market cap of those coins. I think that it's like anything, if you're going to look to make an investment, you're going to want to look to something that has a large investor pool already built in and a sizable market cap already. Some of these altcoins might be into the millions, and they could have a tendency to be riskier because of the total float that they have. One other question I see here, Lauren, that I wanted to address was, is this traded like Grayscale or true exchange such as Kraken? The Grayscale fund, I touched on one of our investors, which was Digital Currency Group. They're actually the parent company for the Grayscale fund, GBTC. GBTC is a closed-end fund. It's only opened to investors at certain periods throughout the year, and that GBTC actually charges a management fee. So it's great if you have a brokerage account and you just want to pick up that security and it's easy. And some people might not feel comfortable opening a crypto account, but the smarter choice to go with, because you want to avoid those management fees, is a true play into crypto and to buy BTC. And Grayscale also has different funds that are targeted towards the other coins, like I think XRP they have, which is obviously on hold right now because of the SEC, but Ethereum and some others as well.
Okay, and then speaking of brokerages, do you recommend any brokerages?
I'm always going to tell your user base that they should come direct to ErisX, but if you're looking to maybe work with some of the ones that I would suggest, maybe talk, like if you're looking to round out your investments, maybe I think eToro is good. One of our investors that's been fantastic to work with has been TradeStation. So I would suggest one of those two.
Okay. Can I move my current crypto key holdings to my Roth IRA?
Right now, we're looking to work with, I would say we actually work with solo 401ks and Ira LLCs. And I have ongoing discussions internally with our legal team about enabling the ability for those types of participants to be able to withdraw and deposit coin into their accounts. So that discussion is fluid. I don't have a set answer right now.
Okay.
But right now, with the DMs, the direct members, it's a closed loop system, so you actually can't withdraw coin or fiat from the platform.
Okay. And then I think maybe we'll round out with, is cryptocurrency investments right for everyone?
There's always a risk tolerance. People have to feel comfortable with what they're investing. I can't give investment advice, but as I touched on before, it's always good to diversify within your portfolios. If you're already involved or invested in precious metals, it would make sense to invest in digital assets as well.
Definitely. Okay, Adam, I'm going to shift to you and let you answer a few questions about how crypto is involved with IRAs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when will crypto investing be available at Midland?
Today, it has been for some time. Obviously, we're tied in now with ErisX for those that want to trade the exchange directly. We also set up and established single member LLCs for those that want to, own more of their own process and have that checkbook control. That solution has been available to our investors as well.
Great. And this one is just curious how I can direct funds accrued in my IRA that's supported by real estate asset?
Sure. So a lot of our existing clients are on the webinar today. Those that hold assets that are throwing off income, rental income or dividend payments from, say, a private placement, they can redirect that cash into ErisX or a single member LLC. They just need to get with their account manager, and we'll guide them through that process. It's the same thing that you'd be used to in terms of forms and investment direction, things like that. So it's really it's just a matter of letting us know, and we'll quarterback that process for you.
Great. And then what type of retirement accounts can invest in crypto?
All of the retirement accounts that we support, IRAs, Roth, traditional, SEP simple, individual 401ks, as JD referenced. Any of these individual retirement type plans that we support can invest in these crypto opportunities that we've been discussing.
Perfect. And then how do I invest in crypto from my IRA into and exchange directly instead of a fund?
Well, I think that's what we've learned about today. So, again, we're tied in directly with ErisX. We open we work with you to open the IRA, open the ErisX account, and we move the funds from the Midland Trust IRA into the ErisX account to allow you to trade the exchange. So, JD went through some of the more finer points of the mechanics, so I won't retread that, but it's pretty straightforward, much like, our clients that work, that invest in the futures and Forex markets. Our process is very similar to what those clients have experienced. So if you are one of those type of clients, it'd be, not undifferent from that.
Okay. And then can you touch a bit on the difference between investing directly in an IRA versus holding an IRA LLC?
Can you repeat that back, Lauren?
Can you touch on the difference between investing directly in an IRA versus in an LLC?
Sure. So an LLC, for those that aren't familiar, we're talking about a single member LLC, which is the entity that allows an IRA investor that checkbook control that they might have heard about. And what it does is we establish a single member LLC where the single member is the IRA account. So that LLC is funded by cash from the IRA account. Once that LLC is funded, they are, the world is their oyster, as they say. So, they can go and open up wallets wherever they like. They can trade ErisX. They can go and purchase real estate. They can go and purchase whatever they would like in their IRA through that LLC. So it's definitely empowering and liberating to for those sophisticated investors, but it puts a lot of onus on that investor in terms of staying within the rules and regulations of the IRS as it comes to IRA investing. So with the LLC, you're given more liberty, but also, you're, as JD touched on risk tolerance before, I think there's some risk tolerance with those. You have to be sophisticated. You have to know the rules. Holding cryptos directly, our solution today, we don't have the custody of these cryptos directly. That's why we offer this solution with ErisX to trade the exchange.
Okay, great. And then what percentage of my retirement accounts can be in crypto? That's
up to you. These are individual retirement accounts, self-directed, and it's a philosophy. Some would call it a marketing term, but it's a philosophy. You yourself, as the investor, as a taxpayer, are empowered to allocate as you see fit with your retirement funds. You're not restricted in any way in terms of allocation percentages, rebalancing, anything like that. With these self-directed accounts, as our Midland clients know, we don't dictate to you what you need to hold, what you need to do, or how much, or suitability for a particular investment. It's up to you to decide, the account holder, the taxpayer.
Okay. And then we had a few questions regarding contributions. First, can I put my Bitcoin in my Midland self-directed IRA as my annual deposit? So I assume they mean a contribution.
Yeah, that's a great question, Lauren. And right now, the IRS restricts contributions to being cash only. But previous to crypto and the digital asset world, folks would ask about contributing a piece of property or an asset to an IRA, and that's just not allowed. The annual contribution limits that we know from the IRS are regulated or kept to cash only contribution. So you could not contribute Bitcoin directly to your IRA as your annual contribution.
Okay, and then can I contribute $7,000 to the cryptocurrency IRA plus an additional $7,000 to a traditional IRA annually?
It's another great question. So, annual contribution limits are looked at by the IRS in aggregate, and that's so it's not just your crypto IRA and your traditional IRA, and it's not just your traditional IRA or your Roth IRA. It's Adam Sypniewski, the taxpayer, has $6,000 available to him every year to contribute to his IRA accounts. So I can't open up 7 IRAs and contribute, 42 grand. It's I have $6,000 which I can allocate to my individual retirement accounts regarding, regardless of tax status or asset class.
Okay. And then can I invest in any crypto company, or is there a restricted list of companies available?
So again, for the exchange solution, we are today, we are tied with ErisX. So that's our solution today. Again, if you want to investigate or go down the path of opening up a single member LLC, that's going to allow the investor to go out into the private market to determine what wallet provider they want to use and what cryptos they want to hold. We can't govern that once you're in a single member LLC. We are just the custodian of that single member LLC within your IRA. So we're not going to govern what you're applying those LLC dollars towards.
Okay. And then,
hey, Lauren, do you mind if I'm just reading through the feed of questions and I saw one that came up. Can I answer it if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see a question from Mike Tissier. He asked, I would like someone to tell me what actually backs up crypto, as I understand nothing backs it up. I would actually say it's based on one, supply and demand. As I mentioned earlier, there's only going to be a supply of 21 million Bitcoin ever created. So the public generally decides what the supply and demand and the price is. It's similar to think about if you make a reference to gold. There's never going to be an infinite supply of gold, but we don't know how much is in the ground and how much is actually going to be available. And we all know that it's a store of value, but how do we decide what the price of gold is? It's based on supply and demand. It's what people's interpretation of what gold prices should be. And the other question that Mike was asking is, he said, if there are more coins added in the future, won't that devalue all the existing coins? It's a great question. So the way that you need to look at the other coins are each of those coins, those altcoins, they're basically creating their own projects. So they're individual and they're not technically, there are of course coins that compete with each other, but each of the coins have their own individual projects and that makes them each unique, and they each have their own kind of store of value and people interpret that project's value to be. So sorry to interrupt there. Just I know that Mike had asked if somebody could answer those questions for him.
Oh yeah, that's great. I know we have a lot of questions coming in and I don't think we're going to have time to get to all of them. So we will try, like I said, or like Adam said at the beginning, to reach out to you guys separately. I think maybe a good place to kind of wrap up or to talk about JD and Adam is how to get started. If they're not already investing in cryptocurrency, what's the best way to get started? What's the order they need to go in to facilitate this in their IRA?
You want me to take that one, JD?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I would contact your rep at Midland and ask them to say that you have an interest in trading cryptocurrencies. They would guide you, and then they probably direct you to the ErisX website. And then at that point, you would go to the ErisX website and you would go through the onboarding steps. They're going to ask for some personal information. There's going to be, that you're going to have to answer about yourself, including social, and they're going to have to take a picture of a liveness check which is basically a picture of yourself, because our software is going to compare that to the picture that you take of your government ID, because we want to make sure that we allow the correct people onto the platform. And then there's going to be a series of KYC questions that also come along. I would recommend those that do the liveness check to use your cell phone, because the resolution on the camera on your cell phone is higher than that of your desktop computer. So you would go through these series of questions, you would answer the KYC questions that are at the end, and then once you complete that and submit, the application would go to our client service onboarding team. They would review. If everything aligns correctly, as I mentioned earlier, the approval can be relatively fast. Like, here's an example. Let's say you put in an address in the platform into the application, and your government ID has a different address. Well, that's going to slow things down, because it's going to be an extra step for our team to review and make sure everything looks correct. Once they're approved by our team, you will get an email that will actually allow you to then download the application, at which point you'll take that to Midland. Midland will review, execute, and then you would submit the application back to ErisX. And then from there, you would work with your rep to coordinate the deposit of funds, which could be done through wire or ACH. Did I miss anything, Adam?
No, I think that's great, JD. I mean, what I would also mention is that, for those of you that have an existing Midland account, if you're, whether it's traditional or Roth, you can, add an ErisX account to that existing Midland account. You do not need to open up an additional IRA unless it's a different tax status, meaning, pre-tax with traditional, post-tax with Roth. If you do need to open up an IRA account, I would be your guy for that. We can get you set up online with an IRA at any time. It's a pretty straightforward process. If you do have an existing account, reach out to your account rep at Midland. If you're not sure who that is, email crypto@midlandtrust.com and we can get you help.
Okay, that's great. And then I just threw your contact information back up here. If anybody has questions that weren't answered today, feel free to reach out to either John or Adam, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help you. We will send a follow-up email this week as well to everyone who is registered, and that would be a great way for you guys to get your questions answered too.
Yeah, and just in closing, I just want to say that the team at Midland has been fantastic to work with, as I've seen within the questions that have been coming through in the comments. Just to echo what some of your user base is already saying, great to work with Midland. Adam, it's been a pleasure. Lauren and Rita and Deborah, I really appreciate all that you do, and I welcome the opportunity to work with your user base.
Yeah, likewise, JD. Thanks for those kind words, and I reciprocate the feeling as well with ErisX. It's been an exciting endeavor so far, and the future looks bright. I mean, based on your comments of what's ahead in quarter 3 and 4, and in 22 and beyond, I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of what we're going to be able to allow our clients to do. So it's really exciting. I'm grateful for your appearance and your comments today. JD, I think we got a lot of information that we'll continue to digest, and the audience will continue to digest. And we look forward to being a resource for everyone here today and beyond. So don't hesitate to reach out if we can help in any way. Again, if you have an account with us, reach out to your rep. If you want to get involved with ErisX, email crypto@midlandtrust.com. If you want to start investing, if you need a new IRA, give me a call, shoot me an email. We'll get you going as quickly as possible. Thanks so much for everybody's attendance here today. Again, you'll receive a recording of the webinar in your inbox here shortly, and we look forward to continue to be helpful to the audience today.
Thank you all.